Hello, I'm Joanna with Blissful Baby Sleep Coaching, and this is my Get Your Life Back, It Starts with Sleep Facebook Live. And today we have a question from Nikki from Ohio that has a 2.5-month-old baby boy. And she has some questions about sleep schedules and routines and kind of expectations, like what's normal for him to do now? What should I be planning for moving ahead to establish really good, healthy sleep habits? And so I'm definitely going to dig in, Nikki, and offer you some insight. But I wanted to kind of lay this conversation down with kind of an understanding of the newborn phase and what's normal and what's expected before I dive into Nikki's specific concerns. And by the way, Nikki, if you're here, I'd love you to just say hi in the chat so that I can make sure that when I move into the part where I'm talking about your particular questions, that I make sure I nail it and that you feel that you got all your questions answered. Okay, so let's kind of talk about newborns. So in the world of sleep science, the newborn phase is 0 to 6 months. So it's this very long, extended phase of rapid development and change, and sleep is notoriously unpredictable in the newborn phase. And I know that can be really hard to hear, and I know we wish it wasn't that way. But there's a reason. There's a couple of really important, fascinating reasons why sleep is so unpredictable and difficult to kind of contain in the schedule that we want. So in the newborn phase, there's two hormones that regulate sleep. There's melatonin, which is your drowsy hormone, and there's cortisol, which is your wakefulness hormone. Those two hormones are quite literally trying to balance and regulate. So there's like a physiological element to the hormone regulation, which then causes the unpredictability of sleep patterns, meaning, this nap was only 20 minutes. This nap was only, 45. This nap was 2 hours, or yesterday was better than today. Or why did he sleep a 4-hour stretch last night, but now tonight he's waking up every 2 hours? So some of that has to do with this hormone regulation about what comes online and what sleep patterns kind of come online and establish, and which ones are trying to form up. So that's kind of the first thing. The second thing that's happening in the newborn phase, especially when you, have, at 2.5 months, they're just emerging a little bit in terms of their personality. And so they're waking up, and they're experiencing the world, and they start moving into some really important developmental phases with their ability for mobility. That's why tummy time is so important in the newborn phase. Most babies do not like tummy time, but it's because it's really hard work. But it's such important work for them to develop the strength in their core and in their neck and in their spinal so that they can move into their rolling milestone, which is one of the first really important big physical milestones that allow the child to, move into that first phase, right? And we don't want them to stall out. I don't want your baby to ever stall out on that first milestone. Or get delayed in that because you weren't giving them time for tummy time. So just kind of have that at your forefront. You only have to do it, do it a couple of times a day when your baby is not hungry or tired, and do it for short intervals so that, yes, they're frustrated, but you don't have to have them be frustrated for 5, 10, 15 minutes. Like you can do 2 to 3 minutes at a time, multiple times a day when they're not hungry and tired. That is almost more beneficial than these long, tummy time stretches. Okay, so anyway, I went off on that, but it is all related, Nikki. It's all related to newborn sleep. So let me just give you a couple of fun facts about newborns and also sleep expectations that will help put all this into context. So, first of all, babies literally double their weight by 5 months of age. And they're growing about 1 to 1.5 centimeters each month. And so if you think about that, they're doing a lot of growing in those first couple of months of life. And growing means they need sleep. And so what's super interesting is that they've calculated that most newborns in their first year of life will sleep 5,400 hours of sleep. And by the way, there's only 8,760 hours in a 365-day year. So you can see that they're sleeping a lot. So in the end, it might not feel to us as a caregiver, a newborn, we feel like the sleep is super disjointed and super unpredictable, and we're always trying to contain it and have it fit into our schedule. But ultimately, they need all of this sleep in all of these chunks and intervals that we have to manage in order for this rapid growth and development that I just mentioned. So typically, a 2-month-old, just so you know, Nikki, a 2-month-old will typically sleep 14 to 17 hours within a 24-hour time frame. Okay. And they will typically take 4 to 6 naps a day at 2 months of age. Okay. Now let's talk about those naps, because this is a big concern for Nikki, because she works part-time from home and she has her mom helping caretake, which is amazing. I'm so glad that you are lucky enough to have a relative nearby that can support you, because it's very hard right now to be a newborn mommy and have less access to childcare due to the pandemic. So I'm very happy for you that you have that. But what Nikki's trying to do is she's trying to kind of manage her part-time work schedule and also be able to delegate appropriately to her wonderful mother that's there to help. And so I want you to know, Nikki, that babies that are 2 months of age, they're taking 4 to 6 naps a day. And the naps will typically be as short as 20 to 30 minutes or as long as 2 hours a day. So you're going to have this very unpredictable, I know I hate using that word, but it's true, right? We can't deny reality of recognizing that in that daytime shift from the time your baby boy wakes up in the morning to the time they're asleep at what's considered their bedtime, in that, daytime shift, they're going to be taking 4 to 6 naps a day. And the intervals between those naps are going to be as short as 60 minutes between naps or as long as 90 minutes between naps. And each nap is going to be 20 to 30 minutes each or as long as 2 hours each. Okay. So that might mean your baby might wake up at 6 a.m., be back asleep by 7 a.m., sleep for 30 minutes at 7:30 a.m., be awake for maybe 80 minutes, back to sleep for maybe an hour, wake up, be awake maybe only for 75 minutes that day, go back to sleep, maybe take a longer nap, then maybe only have a 20-minute nap later. Can you kind of see what I'm saying? So I think the better way to look at newborn sleep is not so much I do this at 7 and I do this at 10 and I do this at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I think it's better just to say to yourself, okay, if I have a daytime shift on any given day, I want to make sure that my baby boy gets 4 to 6 naps a day. And that each nap interval could be as short as 20 to 30 minutes or could be as long as 2 hours. And as long as I add up all that amount of time and I'm getting, I'd have to do the math. I think it's over 4.5 hours of daytime sleep spread between all those multiple naps, then I as mother did a great job that day. I was able to meet my child's sleep expectations on that particular day. That is a much easier way to kind of manage. I call it managing the sleep tank. It's not the value of each individual nap at this particular age. It's more the nailing the right sleep window or sleep wakefulness period in between each nap, and then also allowing the maximum amount of nap time per sleep cycle. Another question that she had is, she said, the other problem I'm having with naps is that he always wants to be in arms. He wants somebody to be holding him. What do I do about that? Because, again, she's working part-time. She wants to be able to, maybe take a shower when her baby's sleeping, or she wants to work out or take care of some personal things around the house or get some work done. So what's hard here is that, again, we're talking newborns, right? And newborns often need a lot of help to go to sleep and a lot of help to go back to sleep when they're napping. And so it is not uncommon for these really little ones, these brand new human beings, that they want closeness during a nap. They want to be on you. They want to be held upright. This is very common, which is why a lot of moms do a ton of baby wearing, which I just love. So I highly recommend that. Letting them sleep in this, like if you want to go out and take a walk and have them sleep in the stroller, or if they nap well in the car and you want to do it that way, it is okay in this newborn phase to use multiple sleep crutches, as well as to allow for kind of what I call mobile naps. In fact, it's kind of a great gift that you can have some of that flexibility at this age, where they can nap on you, nap on the go, nap in the stroller. It gives you a different type of flexibility if you change your mindset around that. And if you want to hold your baby for naps when they're this age, fine. This is amazing. Like, if you can, or you can delegate that to grandma, and you want grandma to help hold the baby during naps, and that's what she wants to do, fabulous. I totally recommend that. You're not going to form bad habits. That's something that Nikki's really concerned about. She's like, okay, these are the things that are working for my baby right now, but I'm super afraid of forming bad habits. My philosophy during the newborn phase, again, which is 0 to 6 months, is babies need a lot of support to go to sleep and go back to sleep. And it is perfectly appropriate, normal, and natural for us as caregivers to give them the help and support they need. There's sometimes a lot of barriers for these newborns to do any kind of self-settling and self-soothing in a meaningful way that's consistent in comparison to what they can do when they're older. So they have the Moro reflex that wakes them up. They've got these unpredictable sleep cycles that wake them up, or have the hard time. Sometimes babies have reflux or colic that can wake them up. They are going into developmental milestones that can wake them up, right? So there's all these barriers to sleep, and which is why they need us to help them go to sleep and go back to sleep. And my opinion is, using sleep crutches in the newborn phase is not going to ever set you up for failure in the future, because the reality is they need it right now. And as they grow older and they begin to do their rolling milestone, and you start to see some predictability in their wakefulness periods, and you start seeing a little bit predictability that they can do longer stretches of sleep at nap times, as well as like that first part of the night, you'll see like longer stretches where they'll be able to go 4, 5, and 6 hour stretch at the beginning of a nighttime cycle. Those are your windows of opportunity when weaning away from some of those sleep crutch sleep supports is more appropriate. But with a 2-month-old, we often need them. And I give you complete permission to use them without guilt and without worrying that you're creating some awful monster that's going to be hard for you to unravel later, because you're already being super mindful about this right now. And so you're not going to let it go into some awful situation later. Usually babies are not ready to do any kind of sleep training that lasts until they are rolling front to back and back to front. and that they are getting closer to 6 months of age. Now, some babies will do that rolling milestone 4.5 months of age, and it becomes very apparent that they are ready to do independent sleep. Awesome. If you have one of those babies, bravo. But most babies, pretty comfortable with the way things are, then they go through that terrible regression, which is caused by the milestone of the rolling milestone. And then when they pop out of that, that's usually a really good time. If you want to do sleep coaching on the earlier side, that's kind of like your first really good window of opportunity when it can be easier on the baby, therefore easier on you, and have more lasting results. Okay. So I'm going to give you a couple more foundations, Nikki. And if you're here, I'd love you to pop in the chat. I'm also going to place something in the, I just put a sleep manners chart in the chat so that any of you can go there and take a look at that and download that so that you can have some of these statistics. Okay, so also in this newborn phase, what's normal is the bedtime typically is a little bit later, like 8 p.m. or later, and that's to kind of give room for all those 4 to 6 naps throughout the day. As I mentioned earlier, you have to be really careful to make sure your baby's not experiencing reflux. That can be one of the number one sleep disruptors in the newborn phase. And often people will just say, oh, it's just colic, but in fact, it's actually where your child is really experiencing discomfort from the digestive fluids coming up into the esophagus and breaking the sleep cycle. So if you're a newborn mom and you're having like tons and tons of arousals in the middle of the night, your baby is always feeling and looking unsettled. Naps are just miserable. Sometimes it's not just the unpredictability of the newborn phase, but it can be the challenges around reflux rearing its ugly head. So really the most important thing you can be doing in the newborn phase is establishing a routine around your sleep cycles. So obviously having a bedtime routine, there's lots of great data on why this is so important. Nikki has done that really well. So again, Nikki, there's so many things that you are doing well. And in fact, the schedule that you're mentioning to me looks fantastic. So just to kind of tell everybody kind of what Nikki's up to. So right now she has her baby in a bassinet in their in the room sharing, like in the master bedroom, and she rocks to sleep, which is fine, and then puts him in a swaddle, and he's usually fairly content with that, and he'll sleep for 4 to 5 hours. And then he wakes up and does a couple of feeds at night. Again, perfectly normal, perfectly appropriate. And that is a great schedule because I think she's nursing about twice a night, and he's able to do about 3-hour stretches between the feeds, which is fantastic. As I mentioned, Nikki's big concern is like the daytime schedule. So hopefully, Nikki, I've been able to give you some perspective on filling the sleep tank at 60 to 90-minute intervals, and knowing that naps that are as short as 20 to 30 minutes are normal, and that holding your baby and using some other sleep coaches for naps is perfectly acceptable. Her other question is like, okay, well, when is that going to change? Like, okay, fine. So I can do that now. Great. But when can I expect things to be a little bit different? So as they get closer to that 4 to 5 month sleep regression, which is caused from the rolling milestone, usually you will start seeing after that milestone some longer stretches of sleep, meaning now they're taking 45-minute naps, or now they're taking 1.5 hour naps instead of all these like small chunk naps. Usually by the time they're 6 months of age, they're down to 3 naps a day. And the first and second nap are longer naps, maybe hour and 15, sometimes even 1.5 hours. And then they have a third nap, which is typically what I call a power nap. And that nap can, again, be short, like 20, 30 minutes, but it's a way to just cap off the day. So, between now and 6 months of age, you're going to be seeing multiple naps, shorter naps. So, um, and again, she wanted to know when is it normal for me to establish, you know, more habits. And I think it's after that rolling milestone. So between now and then, anything you do is really about attending to your baby and just making sure they're getting their daytime sleep expectations. And you're totally doing that. And then in terms of the swaddle, usually the swaddle is fine to keep until they start rolling, and then it becomes a safety issue. Some people will transfer from a tight swaddle to a Merlin suit as kind of a step, like tight swaddle, Merlin suit, and then no swaddle. Again, when a baby starts, and Merlin suits are great. Some babies love them, some babies hate them. So before you go spend money on one, ask maybe in one of your mommy groups if you can borrow one to make sure your baby likes it first before you spend the money on it. Usually by the time they're rolling, you're going to want to get rid of that Merlin suit as well. So sometimes babies just skip that step. They don't ever move into the Merlin suit. And, again, Nikki's concern is okay, I want to make sure I'm doing things right. And I also want to feel productive during the day. So this is the hard one. Newborns are a lot of work. They just are. Kind of like having a puppy is like a lot of work. And so, yeah, you're going to probably not feel terribly productive. I learned how to give myself a lot of grace. I'm a highly productive type A, love my checklists. I just thrive on it. And in motherhood, you sometimes just have to recognize that perfection is really difficult. And by beating yourself up to try to be perfect, it's actually more painful than just relaxing into the new normal, right? So I think you might want to reevaluate what would be considered a productive day for you. For some moms, they're like, hey, it's a productive day if I got a walk outside and I have clean hair, right? Where someone will be like, I have a productive day if I ate 3 meals, have clean hair, and my dishes are done before bed. Well, some moms might be like, I don't care about that. I don't care if I still have dishes in the sink, right? So so just maybe reevaluating, Nikki, kind of what truly would feel realistic and would make you have that internal intrinsic feeling of productivity based on the fact that your baby's going to need you a lot, and that's perfectly normal and okay. So I'm hoping, Nikki, if you're here, I don't know if you are, if you have any other questions, or if anyone else is here would like to ask, I'll give you guys a couple of other really cool baby facts I just think are fascinating. Babies in the first year of life need 3,360 diaper changes. So again, going back to Nikki's idea of productivity, if you're doing that many diaper changes in a year, and each diaper change, sometimes proposes its own versions of time-consuming effort, especially if they have a blowout, or whether or not you have, clean jumper for them because you forgot to do laundry or whatever, that's a lot of diaper changes and might inhibit your productivity. But here's the cool thing, right? Of all the species, humans are the only ones that smile at their parents. So even when you've had a bad day and you haven't been terribly productive, and maybe it was even a day where you didn't get great naps, despite your best efforts at providing them all that loving support, just remember that we're lucky to be humans and that we're the only species where babies will smile at us. So, Nikki, if you have any other questions, don't hesitate to reach out. We can definitely continue the conversation. Anybody that would love to do a hot seat coach like Nikki did today, no problem. You can always submit a question in advance, and I will read everything that you want to tell me, and then I will come to the conversation prepared, or the Facebook Live, I should say, prepared to give some hopefully valuable information that can help you move forward and feel good about the things you're doing, which Nikki is doing a great job. And also, if anybody wants to talk to me further, like specifically wants to talk to me about their unique situation, and I can do sleep strategy sessions, which are 45-minute Zoom video sessions where you, me, and your partner are on the phone talking about your child, your baby, your situation. And I'm able to give you recommendations on how to get sleep back on track. Okay, so thank you so much for coming. Anyone that sees this on a replay, if you have any questions, please do hashtag replay. I'll know to jump in there and answer your questions. Have a great day, you guys. See you next week.